Hello and welcome to another edition of Another Book Review. This week I'll be reviewing The Warehouse by Rob Hart. I'll talk very briefly about the author, go into a spoiler-free overview of the plot, talk about what I liked about the book, what I didn't like about the book, who I'd recommend the book to, and finish off with what I will be reading for next time. Rob Hart has been publishing novels for about 5 years now. He has written a detective series or a crime series along with this book. He also co-authored a book with James Patterson. He's had his short story work appear in several websites. He also has done some journalistic work as well. So he's kind of building a name for himself in the literary world. This book is The Warehouse, which was published, I believe, in 2020, is basically a dystopian future where a single company has taken over the world. They've used their clout to rewrite laws to benefit them and have really monopolized the retail space. So basically think Amazon or Walmart if they were a single company where the workers lived in the same place where they worked and they were given basically bare minimum to live on, bare sustenance to live on. And that's the world that we find ourselves. Climate change has ruined most of the outside world. So the Cloud, this company, has built these co-location spaces where people live and work, and they serve as a buffer to the outside world, which has basically been almost completely obliterated by climate change. So this book is interesting in a few different ways. That's basically the background of the story, of the story, which is about two characters. One whose name is Paxton, who is a former security guard who takes a job at Cloud in order to kind of start fresh. You learn relatively early on that he actually had made an invention. He had a company himself, and Cloud, without spoiling it, basically ruined his business. And so he is, in order just to survive, taking a job with Cloud. We also learn Zinnia, we also learn early on is an agent who is on a mission to infiltrate the Cloud itself and sort of a corporate espionage, I guess, is the easiest way to say it. So there's kind of these twin plots that pretty quickly intertwine. So that's the book. Without spoiling anything, that's essentially the book, is you have these two characters who we follow through the book, and their quote-unquote missions begin to intertwine, and their lives intertwine as they are both working for this giant mega company. I think that what I liked about the book is I think Rob Hart does a pretty good job of taking kind of the current situation and just kind of turning the knob to 11. And he walks a pretty fine line. He does it pretty well as far as being setting the book in a dystopian future, but warping the world just enough to where this is plausible as far as a single company basically taking over all of retail. I think that was really good. I like the corporate espionage aspect of this book. I thought those chapters were really entertaining. I don't know if I've ever read a book that was completely corporate espionage, but this book isn't that either. But I enjoyed those aspects of it. I thought they were interesting and fun. I liked the Paxton character. I liked the idea of this person who has kind of a failed business and what they do to move forward in this world. I liked that character. I thought he was genuine, and I cared about what happened to him. There is space between scattered throughout the book. There are chapters that are written from the perspective of Gibson Wells, who is the CEO of Cloud, who is the richest man on the planet, and he has these chapters which are essentially blog postings about himself and the company and where the company's going and where he's going and all those things. And I think Rob Hart does a very good job, I'm assuming knowingly, but maybe not knowingly, of taking the style, if you've ever read Sam Walton's autobiography, which I don't quite know what is called off the top of my head, but I read it years and years ago. He takes kind of that same kind of folksy style that Sam Walton would write in and applied it really effectively, in my opinion, to the Gibson Wells character. Again, don't know if that's purposely where that comes from, but I thought it was a very good job of kind of taking this character who is very, very powerful and very, very shrewd, and basically kind of covering that up with a layer of just like, well, I'm just kind of almost a bumbling idiot who happened to just be in the right place and works really hard and all those things. And so that I really enjoyed those writings. I thought that was fun. I think on the downside of the book, of things I didn't like as much, I thought the ending could have been a little bit stronger. I thought that there's maybe one or two twists that didn't quite work for me in the book. I thought that there's some plot contrivances that didn't quite work for me. I thought there are points in the book where there are some side characters who were introduced to really, really early on and then introduced to later that I felt could have used another appearance in the book to remind you who they were before kind of that last appearance or the second appearance. Because there's a couple characters who I was kind of scratching my head and going, who is this person? Why do I care about them? And one of them I think was on screen for maybe a page or two and then is gone, and I had no recollection of this person until later on in the book when they appear. I think the author wanted me to have much more of an emotional connection to them than I did. And so I thought that was something that was relatively minor, but that was something to point out. Those were the things that I had problems with. I don't think the book is a perfect book, but I thought I was entertained in reading it. I think it starts out pretty strong. There are some points in the book that I wish there was a little bit more clarification on. And like I said, I think there were some points where I don't think the twist or the turn was maybe necessary or as clever as maybe I think the author thought they were. But overall, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the book. Who I'd recommend the book to, there is some language in the book and there is some violence. There is a scene where I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. It's not quite, there's some sexual inappropriateness, I guess is the way to say it. It's not an assault. There's no physical contact, but there is some inappropriateness that I think may bother some people. The book reminded me tonally as it went on. It's pretty dark. It reminded me a little bit of Gun with Occasional Music by Jonathan Lethem. So if you've read that book and enjoyed that book, this to me was a similar tone to that. Maybe a little bit lighter, but not by much. But if you enjoy kind of dystopia in general, dystopian books in general, I would check it out. It's a pretty quick read. I did enjoy it, despite kind of some of those shortcomings that I found. I read it pretty quickly. It's written, I think, to read in one or two goes. So if you want something that is something of a page turner, that's a dystopian world that kind of talks about labor relations and talks about the power that people have over other people and what can be done and kind of some of the trade-offs that we find ourselves in. I think that stuff is all kind of below the surface. On top of it, the story is pretty strong, other than some of those ending, like I said, not as strong, and there's some twists and turns that I kind of was left a little cold on. But otherwise, that's The Warehouse, and I recommend it. And next time I'm going to be reading Cormac McCarthy, No Country for Old Men. As always, if you enjoyed this, please like the channel. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll have my Twitter link below. And until next time, bye.